Now, I'd love to introduce our next speakers. So let's talk about hashtag HireBlack. All right, Niani Tolbert is a marketer turned tech recruiter turned founder of the HireBlack initiative. HireBlack started as a viral LinkedIn post requesting help in offering 19 Black women to receive resume feedback on Juneteenth, and grew into an initiative whose goal is to help 10,000 Black women get trained and hired, promoted in corporate positions. HireBlack is now a network of 15,000 people and counting, and has been featured in Forbes and Essence. Now, since its inception, HireBlack has worked with companies like Amazon, Disney, Condé Nast, Spotify, Uber, and more. Their resources have reportedly increased the total compensation of the HireBlack members by over $1.2 million. So let's give some snaps for this initiative. This is great. She will be joined in conversation by Lucy Sandy, who's an account executive here at Power to Fly. I'll pass the mic to both of you. Thank you so much in advance. And I'm looking forward to taking notes and learning. So thank you all.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much, Niani. Thank you so much for being here, girl. What a great introduction. And let's just take a moment and absorb that, and just you should flex a little bit because you've been making some moves. So thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you, Lucy. And thank you to Power Supply for amplifying Black voices, for doing this right here, right now. Yes. It's so needed. And so I'm looking forward to having this conversation. And I don't want this conversation to just be about me. So I want for people to be in the chat getting gems to understand what they could do. So that's yes. What I want the goals for this to be, to learn about HireBlack, but for everybody to come out with something, you know what I mean?
Yes. But at the same time though, you have done pioneering work, right? In making the system less ignorant towards other cultures. So we do want to hear about you, and we want to hear about your journey of starting hashtag HireBlack.
All right, let's get it.
So tell me a little bit about that journey of putting all of that together and realizing that, taking that step of leaving your full-time job and yeah. Realizing that this is what you were going to do and move forward. So can you unpack that a little bit of what made you just really decide to lean in and jump into this new adventure that you decided?
Absolutely. So just to give you some context, I started HireBlack when I was furloughed. I was a furloughed tech recruiter. So I was broke. I was bored. I was scared. I had all of the things. I was feeling a lot of things. And so for Juneteenth, it was around the murder of George Floyd, and I wanted to give back and advocate the way my lane looks. And my lane looked like helping Black people and Black women who are already systemically oppressed get considered for an extremely competitive job market. And so I reached out to my LinkedIn network of recruiters, and I asked if anyone wants to help with offering resume review sessions. And then I asked the Black women in the communities that I'm in if anybody wants any help. And so within the first 48 hours, over 400 recruiters slid in my DM.
Wow.
Mind you, I did not have a form. I didn't have a website, nothing. It was crazy. So shout out to Ashley in the chat, who I didn't know at the time, who I met on a Zoom introduction meeting. And I asked Ashley if Ashley wanted to be a volunteer and help me put all of these things together. Because within 24 hours, over 500 Black women dropped their resumes. So throughout that whole entire summer, like I said, I didn't have a Calendly, nothing was planned. we were out here spending 40 plus hours per week, actually manually matching people based on the recruiter's experience and expertise and resumes. And so it started from there. I wanted to do a summit. We did that for the first year. We made a Slack group, and it really grew organically from there. So when my job asked for me to come back, I'm going to be honest with you, at 70% or 75% of what I was making. And I was just like, if I'm gonna do this, I can try to make this work. There is such a need. Things are going well. And so I decided not to go back to work. And that means that I forfeited unemployment checks. But it was a risk that I was willing to take, especially because of the impact that I wanted to make. And I thought that we could all make together.
So if I love that, because I want to talk a little bit of like unpack that a little bit more as well, you know, that offer that they'd given you to come back. So what are some of those discrepancies in our hiring system and workforce that you've encountered, which, you know, obviously propelled you towards crafting what this mission is for, you know, hashtag HireBlack?
Yeah. So here's what I'm going to give a little bit of lingo, and I want to give y'all some tea. All right. So
let's get into
it. So this is where I want to see y'all have some gems. Write this stuff down because I think it's important for everybody to understand this information. So as a recruiter, I had 3 buckets, right? 3 buckets of candidates. One was the organic candidate, which is someone who applied for our job through our job board or applied online. So that's an organic candidate. Then you have inbound, or you have sourced candidates. So those are the people that we source and go on to LinkedIn and reach out and say, hey, you want to leave your job? So that's what a sourced candidate looks like. Okay. But then we have referrals. Okay, so the referrals is really important because it is one of the most efficient ways to fill a job. And that's essentially us asking people who already work or our own network or people who already work within the company for someone who is great at that job. So that person will the likelihood of someone having a referral is like 80%. To actually talk to a hiring manager, talk to a recruiter. Whereas if you're talking to, or if you're an organic candidate, the likelihood is much, much lower. So thinking about those 3 buckets, right? You have, like I said, you have your organic bucket, your source bucket, and your referral bucket. I'm going to just talk about the biases, right? That comes to what is qualified for someone who is sourcing. Like what type of colleges are you guys looking at? What type of certifications? What type of specific communities are you guys looking into that can be biased? That is the same thing that comes for when you're looking at organic candidates. As people are looking at resumes, what is qualified, right? Is there some type of bias that goes into expectations of what is qualified? And then referrals. If you're asking a non-diverse group of people who came from, maybe predominantly white institutions or may not have or be tapped into communities that may not look like them, you're continuing to perpetuate a referral system that does not include a diverse amount of people or a diverse looking or diverse feeling, diverse groups of people. So across all those buckets, we got to redo it. We got to rethink how we do every single one of these buckets. And so I want to make sure that, Black women in my community knows exactly how to tackle each single bucket so they can be considered on all buckets. But then B, I want for the partners for us to consider, I want to challenge them and understand that we need to really rethink and restructure how we look at these buckets.
I love that. I love that. So would you say the lack of resources and training limits the entry of women into the workforce more than the lack of opportunity? Or would you say both?
So what I would say, and I always say this, the opportunities are there, right? Yeah. And the training is there. Like Black people are super educated and super qualified. We got the goods. The issue is the access, right? And so whether it's access into specific groups, access into specific knowledge, right? Mm-hmm. So that strategy that has been passed along and that like, this is how you need to move. We don't do that. I'm not used to doing that.
Go ahead. No. I was going to add on to that, but no, go ahead.
And so, that strategy, the strategy behind, how to gain knowledge, how to move. So that access to that type of knowledge and information, that access to that network is what's different. And so I always say that, wealth is about access and not assets. You know what I'm saying? So I really want to make sure that people understand that we got the goods. We're capable, we're trained, we're educated. We have all of that and the opportunities are there, but y'all need to give us that access to it. And we will be able to do and go out the park with all that.
I was going to add on to that, because one of the things when I was researching hashtag HireBlack and the things I love, the idea, negotiating, like negotiating what you think you're worth when you are applying for that job, which is so important. And there is a skill to that.
Yep.
Understanding that and giving women of color that opportunity is, that knowledge of power is huge, to actually come in and feel that, I'm actually worth this, and here's why. That's extremely important as well. So so that's all I wanted to kind of piggyback on with after that. That's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, and negotiation is a strategy, right? I think that at least from the culture that I'm at, and I can only go by the reviews that I've always got blunt. Hey, you're too blunt. You're so blunt. You say whatever's on your mind. That's because my mama raised me that way. I have not learned to not be blunt, right? And so, when it comes to negotiating, I'm usually straightforward. There's an expectation of being straightforward. So I expect others to be straightforward, but I understand that there's a lot of learning and strategizing. And that is something that I want to share. So when we talk about our trainings, it's, what is your career strategy? Do you know what you want? How do you get what you want? And how do you get that job in a way that doesn't necessarily make you only in the bucket of an organic candidate? How do we get you into all these other buckets as well?
So we have some questions coming up. Joseph asked, you seem to have a great desire to change the society. How do you intend to help others? How do you intend to help others so that you don't lean on one side and be accused of being prejudiced?
So I always say that when you help the most marginalized people in the communities, in any community, you're helping everyone, right? And so if you help Black people, you help everybody. If you help women, you help everybody. And I talk about that when it goes to even more of the intersectionality. So you're talking about Black, disabled, queer women, Black, disabled, trans women. You're helping everyone. Everyone gains. Everyone wins. Because, everyone just wins. And so I think that it's important to understand that that is where we have to start. We have to start there. And when it comes to just having conversations around prejudice, I think that it's important to understand that until everyone's getting paid right, until everyone's getting considered the same, there has to be initiatives in order for the playing field to be evened, or in order for people to be considered. Because at the end of the day, there are, unconscious biases that need to be addressed.
Absolutely. So speaking of getting paid, getting that job, so what's the role of a well-organized and strategized resume when it comes to applying for jobs?
All right. I love this question because I get this question so much.
I knew it.
I get this question so much. So remember, and I want to see people in the chat. I actually have my phone right here because I'm looking at the chat. I want to see what y'all saying, because I want to see if y'all have any gems. If you guys have any gems, put gems in the chat so I know what you guys like to hear. But when it comes to the well-organized resume, I want to see what people in the chat are saying. So we have the organic candidate. You are an organic candidate if you have submitted your resume to a job board. So if anyone can say what the other two are in the chat, or at least any other ones that I mentioned in the chat is, I would love to see if you guys are paying attention and taking y'all notes. All right. And so when it comes to mastering the organic part of being a candidate, that organic candidate, it's so important, right? And so ATS systems are there not just bots, like there are people who are going through and parsing through resumes. So it's important for you to have, the same exact keywords. I'm not talking about like if you're a content manager, you can say I do Instagram. No, I want you to put the same exact keywords that's on that job description, right? And I want you guys to do that and do the same thing for LinkedIn, okay? Because we're gonna go there next. But it's important for you to have the same words. so that when people are looking at your resume, they can just automatically think, oh, check. They say the same thing that I'm looking for in the job description. So that's one. But understand that it is a strategy. So you have to think about the other ones. I see Rashonda said source and referrals. Sandra said candidates and referrals. Okay, Angie said source and referrals. I see y'all. Y'all got this. Y'all doing this. So if we're talking about the source part, because we talked about resume, we need to think about the source part. And how do you get sourced?
Okay.
LinkedIn. It's LinkedIn. I'm telling you all. So you have to also use that skills section. Think of maybe look at every single job description that you guys have, that you guys are want and you guys are gunning for, and put those skills right in your skills section. Maximize that. So that's how you get that source bucket. And then referrals, you need to join, be here, power to fly, okay? Be up in the networking section. I want you guys to put your LinkedIn in the chat, link with each other, join communities, join the HireBlack Slack group. But there are so many ways to learn and meet more people. So so like I said, resume, we have the HireBlack job board. You can get a resume review. You have referrals, you have that sourcing bucket. Those are three things. So make sure you have your strategy all across the board.
Would you also say that that's part of helping not getting your resume like rejected by the applicant tracking system? Is there any other actionable insight in regards to optimizing that as well? Is that part of that same that track of keeping keywords,
Keyword, I would say yes, because, keeping keywords is definitely a way to get noticed by recruiters. If I have 100 people that have read and I have a little bit of time to look through resumes, I'm going to look through. If I have a project manager and I'm looking for someone who can use a project management system, I might look up Trello or Asana, and those people who put Trello or Asana will come up first, and those are the people who I'm going to consider first. And also, a lot of job boards, you can link your LinkedIn, and people will be looking at them. And even, some people put their LinkedIn as a PDF. So you need to make sure that you are linking your LinkedIn if there's any opportunities to do that onto your resume, and make sure that all of those keywords are there. I want all of them to be there.
I'm going to ask some of these questions, but I definitely want to give you some time toward the end to talk more about promoting specifically #Black. But Zoe asked, have #Black members seen an increase in offers and or interviews?
Mm-hmm. So we have basically an annual survey, and that's the way we were able to see, because people report to us that they have received over $1.2 million in an increase of their compensation. So that's people who have filled out their survey. But there have been people who have come to me, like one person who came to me about Disney. She said that she applied to Disney about 10 times and she never got considered. But from the HireBlack resources and from the summit that we had, she was able to actually get a job from there. And the same thing. That's the type of stuff that I love to hear, because we invest so much of our time, energy, resources, and the money into making and fostering actual connections. It's important for us to not necessarily funnel a bunch of resumes, but really how can we have one-on-one conversations? How can we put you in front of somebody that can help you either guide you into the right direction, or they can actually give you a job? That's the type of things that we really want to have. And that's how we really address that referral bucket, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. And then and forgive me if I'm not pronouncing the name correctly, but Kadema asked, would you suggest putting your skills in the about section of LinkedIn or in the skills expertise area?
Okay, so in your bio, you need to have as many keywords as possible that make sense. Okay, so write something that is as great as possible, because your bio is going to you can search through your bios. Now, there are people that are learning, how to do, that might be recruiting coordinators or sourcers. And when I started off by just being okay, I'm going to search via skills on LinkedIn, because to give you some context, just like Uber has the Uber driver app, and then you have the Uber consumer app, LinkedIn is the same thing. Recruiters don't use the same LinkedIn that you guys use. There's an advanced search mechanism that recruiters use, and I had to do it for 3 hours a day. So I was always on there. But they often, people who are sourcers, there are people whose job is to specifically source from 9 to 5 on LinkedIn. And so if they're a new sourcer working on a project, they may specifically work on skills. And so for that reason, I want you guys to have as many skills as possible. I think the maximum is like 30, as many skills as possible. And those skills to be every single iteration of the job title or the job function that you use. So like I said, if you are a content manager, then put Instagram Reels, TikTok, like Instagram stories, content manager, content strategy, all of that, social strategy. There are many different ways to say the same thing, and it's important for you to say all of them.
So you have mentioned your summits twice. So tell us more about training, events, and courses at #HireBlack.
Yeah, so the way that we do things is everything's around strategy. So we have negotiations, salary negotiations, workshops. We do finding out what you actually want so you can get what you want. Because do you really want more money or do you want more freedom? Like, which one do you want? We do things around normalizing Blackness in the workplace, bringing your authentic self, finding your tribe, all of those types of conversations to where we want to help you feel empowered. So I was low-key I'm like a career coach, but I think that it's important for us to have these strategies and really have career clarity and be able to not just accept what life comes to us when it comes to career, but really go out and intentionally set what we desire so that we can make sure that we establish boundaries and get what we want. So a lot of that comes into our, we always talk about upcoming events within our Slack. You guys can connect with me on LinkedIn. We have Black Women's Equal Pay Day that always comes up in August. We have the summit. So there's many different ways to connect with us and get that training and additional help.
So I feel like social media, I know social media is huge and has been a huge influence for people of color to make moves and promote themselves. And you have found a way to do that as well. So how has social media helped you manage and escalate it into a acceptable force for women of color?
Yeah, well, we started on LinkedIn. We started right on social media. So I would say that, there wouldn't be a HireBlack without that post. And I would also say, I didn't even meet Ashley. Ashley's all up in the comment section. Ashley was the person that I talked to, that I ran to as the first volunteer. And now then she became a contractor. Then she became a junior operations coordinator. Now she's a junior operations manager. And so you are able to foster really great and deep connections from social media. Half my team I've never even met before. There was one person from my team, I had no idea that she was the height that she was, and I was surprised when I finally met her. And so you can foster connections on social media, right? Like there are opportunities to be able to actually make meaningful connections, make your next career bestie, find your next mentor, find your next sponsor, find your next co-worker or anything like that. And so I think it's so important for us to continue to learn how to utilize this as a tool to foster these meaningful connections, and also for us to be able to distribute information. So what I love about HireBlack is the fact that it's not me just talking to y'all. Like, it's not me just talking. It's a whole community of people in an ecosystem of people who are sharing their experiences and sharing their advice. So for Black Women's Equal Pay Day, we had 2,000 plus people sharing their sharing their salary compensation data and information anonymously. So,
Wow.
I could share my salary compensation information, but we have 2,000 plus people in a database that you can look at and filter. And so, I think that it's so incredible to have something to where there's user generated content. And it's kind of like a gift that keeps on giving.
So now, Niani, you're going to love this one. Me Brown said, and I know we only have like a minute or two left, but can you provide me a brief overview on how to negotiate for a raise? I've asked for a raise and I've gotten turned down.
Oh,
I know.
So that's a whole entire workshop. I think that it's important when you establish any conversations with your manager to establish like what does success look like to you, and for you to have a brag book. Have your receipts all ready. And so when you write down, hey, success means X amount of impressions, or success means X amount of whatever, then you can show where you were and where you're already showing that progress. So document where you were. Try to see all the receipts that you can find as to where you were, and try to make sure that you are always documenting that progress, because if the receipts and the data are there, what do we talk about? What do we have to say? And I would also say there's a resource called 81 Cents. And I think that you should be out. It's a resource called 81cents.com, and they offer market value reports. It's a 24-page report based on your experience and your expertise and your location, to where you can get a personalized report on how much you should be making, or a range in how much you should be making. So look into that and see if you can get any additional insight, because you might be getting underpaid. And you might just want to go to another company in general, because you'll get 20%, you'll probably get 20% more anyway. So if you hop to another company. So, but that's your decision. That's the fastest thing that I can say, but I would say try to find additional resources on negotiating as well.
I love that. So unfortunately, I could talk to you all day. So we need to make sure the audience connects with you. So please let us know the best way to connect with you and to support all of the things that you're doing for the community.
Yes. And so I would say connect with me on LinkedIn. It's Niani Tolbert on LinkedIn. I also put it inside this chat. So hopefully I can get into that chat. Ashley, put it in the chat if you can. I know you're in there. I would also say join us on Slack. It's free to join. So it's hireblacknow.com/join-slack. Go on hireblacknow.com, and see what the resources that we have to offer. Join and tap into the community, share some advice, and give some advice.
Thank you so much. This was so valuable. We need this, blessing on blessing. And thank you for continuing to do what we need to do to move forward and to make moves and to become a more holistic community.
Yes, thank you so much, Lucy. And thank you so much for providing the vibes and the questions. Claps to you. Thank you to Power to Fly. And I'm looking forward to connecting with you all.